What's up, baby? It's me. I'm back, and I'm getting ready to read chapter 6 to you. So I think where we left off, the boys just got picked up by Dally, and they are in a restaurant eating some food. They're gorging themselves because they're so hungry. They haven't eaten in a long time. And Dally is giving them a rundown on everything that's been happening back in the neighborhood, and he's been telling them about a war, basically a big rumble that is starting up. And he said that they have a spy, and the spy is Cherry Valance, and that's what we'll pick up at chapter 6. Johnny gagged, and I almost dropped my hot punch. Said, do re mi fa sol la ti do. I'm gonna start over, okay? Johnny gagged, and I almost dropped my hot fudge sundae. Cherry? We both said at the same time. The Soch? Yeah, Dally said. She came over to the vacant lot the night Two Bit was jumped. Shepard and some of his outfit and us were hanging around there when she drives up in a little old Stingray. That took a lot of nerve. Some of us was jumping her then and there, her being the dead kid's girl and all. But Two Bit stopped us. Man, next time I want to bra it up, I'll pick up my own kind. Yeah, Johnny said slowly. And I wondered if, like me, he was remembering another voice, also tough and just deepening into manhood, saying, next time you want a broad, pick up your own kind. It gave me the creeps. Dally was going on. She said she felt that the whole mess was her fault, which it is, and that she keep up with what was coming up, and that she keep with what was coming off with the soldiers in the rumble, and would testify that the soldiers were drunk and looking for a fight, and that you fought back in self-defense. He gave a grim laugh. That little girl sure does hate me. I offered to take her over to the dingo for a coke, and she said, no thank you, and told me where I could go in very polite terms. She was afraid of loving you, I thought. So Cherry Valance, the cheerleader, Bob's girl, the Soch, was trying to help us. No, it wasn't Cherry the Soch who was helping us. It was Cherry the dreamer who watched sunsets and couldn't stand fights. It was hard to believe a Soch would help us, even a Soch that dug sunsets. Dally didn't notice. He had forgotten about it already. Man, this place is out of it. What do they do for kicks around here? Play checkers? Dally surveyed the scene without interest. I ain't never been in the country before. Have you two? Johnny shook his head, but I said, Dad used to take us all hunting. I've been in the country before. How'd you know about the church? I got a cousin that lives around here somewheres. Tipped me off that it'd make a tough hideout in case of something. Hey, Pony Boy, I heard you was the best shot in the family. Yeah, I said. Derry always got the most ducks, though. Him and Dad. Soda and I goofed around too much, scared most of our game away. I couldn't tell Dally that I hated to shoot things. He'd think I was soft. That was a good idea. I mean, cutting your hair and bleaching it. They printed your descriptions in the paper, but you sure wouldn't fit them now. Johnny been quietly finishing his fifth barbecue sandwich, but now he announced, we're going back and turn ourselves in. It was Dally's turn to gag. Then he swore a while. Then he turned to Johnny and demanded, what? I said we're going back and turn ourselves in, Johnny repeated in a quiet voice. I was surprised, but not shocked. I thought about turning ourselves in lots of times, but apparently the whole idea was a jolt to Dallas. I got a good chance of being let off easy, Johnny said desperately, and I didn't know if it was Dally he was trying to convince or himself. I ain't got no record with the fuzz, and it was self-defense. Ponyboy and Cherry can testify to that. And I don't aim to stay in that church all my life. That was quite a speech for Johnny. His big black eyes grew bigger than ever at the thought of going to the police station, for Johnny had a deathly fear of cops. But he went on. We won't tell that you helped us, Dally. And we'll give you back the gun and what's left of the money and say we hitchhiked back so you won't get in trouble, okay? Dally was chewing the corner of his ID card, which gave his age as 21 so he could buy liquor. You sure you want to go back? Us Grecians get it worse than anyone else. Johnny nodded. I'm sure. It ain't fair for Ponyboy to have to stay up in that church with Derry and Soda worrying about him all the time. I don't guess... He swallowed and tried not to look eager. I don't guess my parents are worried about me or anything. The boys are worried, Dolly said in a matter-of-fact voice. Two-Bit was going to Texas to hunt for you. My parents, Johnny repeated doggedly. Did they ask about me? No, snapped Dolly. They didn't. Blast it, Johnny. What do they matter? Shoot, my own man don't give a hang whether I'm in jail or dead or in a car wreck or drunk in the gutter. Don't bother me none. Johnny didn't say anything, but he stared at the dashboard with such hurt bewilderment that I could have bawled. Dolly cussed under his breath and nearly tore off the transmission of the T-Bird as we roared out of the Dairy Queen. I felt sorry for Dolly. He meant it when he said he didn't care about his parents. But he and the rest of the gang knew Johnny cared and did everything they could to make it up to him. I don't know what it was about Johnny. Maybe that lost puppy look or those big scared eyes were what made everyone his big brother. But they couldn't, no matter how hard they tried, take the place of his parents. I thought about it for a minute. Derry and Soda Pop were my brothers, and I loved both of them. Even if Derry did scare me, but not even Soda could take Mom and Dad's place. And they were my real brothers, not just sort of adopted ones. No wonder Johnny was hurt because his parents didn't want him. Dolly could take it. Dolly was of the breed that could take anything because he was hard and tough, and when he wasn't, he could turn hard and tough. Johnny was a good fighter and could play it cool, but he was sensitive. That isn't a good way to be when you're a greaser. Blast it, Johnny, Dolly growled as we flew along the railroad. Why didn't you think of turning yourself in 5 days ago? It would have saved a lot of trouble. I was scared, Johnny said with conviction. I still am. He ran his finger down one of his short black sideburns. Guess we ruined our hair for nothing, Pony Boy. Guess so. I was glad we were going back. I was sick of that church. I didn't care if I was bald. Dolly went scowling, and from long and painful experience, I knew better than to talk to him when his eyes were blazing like that. How likely it's not got clobbered over the head. That had happened before, just as it had happened to all the gang at one time or another. We rarely fought among ourselves. Dolly was an unofficial leader since he kept his head, Derry was an unofficial leader since he kept his head best. Soda and Steve had been best friends since grade school and never fought, and Two-Bit was just too lazy to argue with anyone. Johnny kept his mouth shut too much to get into arguments, and nobody ever fought with Johnny. I kept my mouth shut too. Dolly was a different matter. If something beefed him, he didn't keep quiet about it, and if you rubbed him the wrong way, look out. Not even Derry wanted to tangle with him. He was dangerous. Johnny just sat there and stared at his feet. He hated for any of us to be mad at him. He looked awful sad. Dolly glanced out of one of the corner of his eye. I looked out the window. Johnny, Dolly said in a pleading high voice, using a tone I'd never heard from him before. Johnny, I ain't mad at you. I just don't want you to get hurt. You don't know what a few months in jail could do to you. Oh, blast it, Johnny. He pushed his white blonde hair back out of his eyes. You get hardened in jail. I don't want that to happen to you. Like it happened to me. I kept staring out the window at the rapidly passing scenery, but I felt my eyes getting round. Dolly never talked like that. Never. Dolly didn't give a Yankee dime about anyone but himself, and he was cold and hard and mean. He never talked about his past or being in jail that way. If he talked about it at all, it was to brag. And I suddenly thought of Dolly in jail at the age of 10. Dolly, growing up in the streets. Would you rather have me living in hideouts for the rest of my life? Always on the run, Johnny asked seriously. If Dolly had said yes, Johnny would have gone back to the church without hesitation. He figured Dolly knew more than he did, and Dolly's word was law. But he never heard Dolly's answer. For we had reached the top of J Mountain, and Dolly suddenly slammed on the brakes and stared. Oh, glory, he whispered. The church was on fire. Let's go see what the deal is, I said, hopping out. What for? Dolly sounded irritated. Get back in here before I beat your head in. I knew Dolly would have to park the car and catch me before he could carry out his threat, and Johnny was already out and following me, so I figured I was safe. We could hear him cussing us out, but he wasn't mad enough to come after us. There was a crowd at the front of the church, mostly little kids, and I wondered how they got in there so quickly. I tapped on the nearest grown-up. What's going on? Well, we don't know for sure, the man with the good-natured grin. The man said with a good-natured grin. We're having a school picnic up here. First thing we knew, the place is burning up. Thank goodness this is wet season and the old thing is worthless anyway. Then, to the kids, he shouted, Stand back, children. The firemen will be coming soon. I bet we started it, I said to Johnny. You must have dropped a lighted cigarette or something. About that time, a lady came running up. Jerry, some of the kids are missing. They're probably around here somewhere. You can't tell with all this excitement where they might be. No, she shook her head. They've been missing for at least a half an hour. I thought they were climbing the hill. Then we all froze. Faintly, just faintly, you could hear someone yelling, and it sounded like it was coming from inside the church. The woman went white. I told them not to play in the church. Come here. Hold up a second. Hey, what's up, bud? Yeah.
You're like cold and warm at the same time.
Yeah, man, it's weird. I don't want to mess with the AC
Oh,
because I'm afraid it won't come back to me. I'm afraid that if I like that temperature,
I change the temperature on that all the time.
but when I lay down in bed at night, it's not that I'm afraid that it won't work. When I lay down in bed at night and under the covers, that is a perfect temperature.
Oh, okay.
When I change it, it's hard for it to get back to the room like this. So
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna finish reading to my daughter. I'm gonna get new covers.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, sir.
Hey, no problem, man. Hey, put her back. So the woman went white. I told them not to play in the church. I told them. She looked like she was going to start screaming, so Jerry shook her. I'll get them. Don't worry. I started at a dead run for the church, and the man caught my arm. I'll get them. You kids stay out. I jerked loose and ran on. All I could think was, we started it. We started it. We started it. I wasn't about to go through that flaming door, so I slammed a big rock through a window and pulled myself in. It was a wonder I didn't cut myself to death now that I think about it. Hey, Pony Boy! I looked around, startled. I hadn't realized Johnny had been right behind me all the way. I took a deep breath and started coughing. The smoke filled my eyes and they started watering. Is that guy coming? Johnny shook his head. The window stopped him. Too scared? Nah, Johnny gave me a grin. Too fat. I couldn't laugh because I was scared I would drown in the smoke. The roar and crackling was getting louder and Johnny shouted the next question. Where's the kids? In the back, I guess, I hollered, and we started stumbling through the church. I should be scared, I thought, with an odd detached feeling, but I'm not. The cinders and embers began falling on us, stinging and smarting like ants. Suddenly, in the red glow in the haze, I remember wondering what it was like in a burning ember, and I thought, now I know. It's a red hell. Why aren't I scared? We pushed open the door to the back room and found 4 or 5 little kids, about 8 years old or younger, huddled in the corner. One was screaming his head off, and Johnny yelled, Shut up! We're going to get you out! The kid looked surprised and quit hollering. I blinked myself. Johnny wasn't behaving at all like his old self. He looked over his shoulder and saw that the door was blocked by flames, then pushed open the window and tossed out the nearest kid. I caught one quick look at his face. It was red marked from falling embers and sweat streaked, but he grinned at me. He wasn't scared either. That was the only time I can think when I saw him without that defeated, suspicious look in his eyes. He looked like he was having the time of his life. I picked up a kid and he promptly bit me, but I leaned out the window and dropped him as gently as I could, being in a hurry like that. A crowd was there by that time. Dally was standing there. When he saw me, he screamed, For Pete's sake, get out of there! That roof's going to cave in any minute. Forget those blasted kids. I didn't pay any attention, although pieces of the old roof were crashing down too close for comfort. I snatched up another kid, hoping he didn't bite, and dropped him without waiting to see if he landed okay or not. I was coughing so hard I could hardly stand up, and I wished I had time to take off Dally's jacket. It was hot. We dropped the last of the kids out as the front of the church started to crumble. Johnny shoved me towards the window. Get out! I leaped out the window and heard timber crashing and the flames roaring right behind me. I staggered, almost falling, coughing and sobbing for breath. Then I heard Johnny scream, and as I turned to go back for him, Dally swore at me and clubbed me across the back as hard as he could, and I went down into a peaceful darkness. When I came to, I was being bounced around, and I ached and smarted and wondered dimly where I was. I tried to think, but there was a high-pitched screaming going on, and I couldn't tell whether it was inside my head or out. Then I realized it was a siren. The fuzz, I thought dully. The cops had come for us. I tried to swallow a groan and wished wildly for a soda. Someone with a cold, wet rag was gently sponging off my face, and a voice said, "I think he's coming around." I opened my eyes. It was dark. I'm moving, I thought. Are they taking me to jail? Where? Where? I said hoarsely, not able to get anything else out of my mouth. My throat was sore. I blinked at the stranger sitting beside me, but he wasn't a stranger. I'd seen him before. "Take it easy, kid. You're in an ambulance." "Where's Johnny?" I cried, frightened of being in this car with strangers. "And Dallas?" "They're in the other ambulance, right behind us. Just calm down. You're going to be okay. You just passed out." "I didn't either," I said in the bored, tough voice we reserve for strangers and cops. "Dallas hit me." "How come?" "Because your back was in flames. That's how come." I was surprised. "It was? I didn't feel it. It don't hurt." "You put it out before you got burned. The jacket saved you from a bad burning, maybe saved your life. You just killed over from smoke inhalation, and a little shock, of course. That slap on the back didn't help much." I remember who he was then. Jerry somebody or other who was too heavy to get in the window. He must be a school teacher, I thought. "Are you taking us to the police station?" I was a little mixed up as to what was coming off. The police station? It was his turn to be surprised. What would we want to take you to the police station for? We're taking all three of you to the hospital. I let his first remark slide by. "Are Johnny and Dallas all right?" "Which one's which?" "Johnny has black hair. Dallas, the mean looking one. He studied his wedding ring. Maybe he's thinking about his wife," I thought. I wish he'd say something. "We think the tow-headed kid's going to be all right. He burned one arm pretty badly, though, trying to drag the other kid out the window. Johnny, well, I don't know about him. A piece of timber caught him right across the back. He might have a broken back, and he was burned pretty severely. He passed out before he got out the window. We're giving him plasma now." He must have seen a look on my face because he hurriedly changed the subject. "I swear, you three kids are the bravest kids I've seen in a long time. First, you and the black-haired kid climbing in that window, and then that tough-looking kid going back in to save him. Mrs. O'Brien and I think you were sent straight from heaven. Or you're just professional heroes or something." Sent from heaven? Had he gotten a good look at Dallas? "No, we're greasers," I said. I was too worried and scared to appreciate the fact that he was trying to be funny. "You're what?" "Greasers. You know, like hoods. JDs. Johnny is wanted for murder, and Dallas has a record with the fuzz a mile long." "Are you kidding me?" Jerry stared at me as if he thought I was still in shock or something. "I am not. Take me to my town and you'll find out pretty quick. We're taking you to a hospital there anyway. The address card in your billfold said that's where you lived." "Your name's really Ponyboy?" "Yeah, even on my birth certificate. Don't bug me about it. I felt weak. Are the little kids okay?" "Just fine. A little frightened, maybe. There were some short explosions right after you all got out. It sounded just exactly like gunfire." Gunfire. There went our gun. And gone with the wind. Were we sent from heaven? I started to laugh weakly. I guess that guy knew how close to hysterics I really was, for he talked to me in a low, soothing voice all the way to the hospital. I was sitting in the waiting room, waiting to hear how Dally and Johnny were. I'd been checked over, and except for a few burns and a big bruise across my back, I was all right. I had watched them bring Dolly and Johnny in on stretchers. Dolly's eyes were closed, but when I spoke, he tried to grin and told me that if I ever did a stupid thing like that again, he'd beat the tar out of me. He was still swearing at me when they took him on in. Johnny was unconscious. I'd been afraid to look at him, but I was relieved to see that his face wasn't burned. He just looked very pale and still and sort of sick. I would have cried at the sight of him so still, except I couldn't in front of people. Jerry Wood had stayed with me all the time. He kept thanking me for getting the kids out. He didn't seem to mind our being hoods. I told him the whole story, starting when Dallas and Johnny and I had met at the corner of Pickett and Sutton. I left out the part about the gun or our hitching a ride in the freight car. He was real nice about it and said that being heroes would help us get out of trouble, especially since it was self-defense and all. I was sitting there, smoking a cigarette, when Jerry came back in from making a phone call. He stared at me for a second. You shouldn't be smoking. I was startled. How come? I looked at my cigarette. It looked okay to me. I looked around for a no smoking sign and couldn't find one. How come? Why, Jerry stammered. Uh, you're too young. I am? I never thought about that. Everyone in our neighborhood, even the girls, smoked, except for Derry, who was too proud of his athletic health to risk a cigarette. We had all started smoking at an early age. Johnny had been smoking since he was 9, Steve started at 11, so no one thought it was unusual when I started. I was a weed fiend in my family. Soda smokes only to steady his nerves when he wants to look tough. Jerry simply sighed, then grinned. There's some people here to see you, claim to be your brothers or something. I leaped up and ran for the door, but it was already open, and Soda had me in a bear hug and was swinging me around. I was so glad to see him I could have bawled. Finally, he set me down and looked at me. He pushed my hair back. Oh, Pony Boy, your hair, your tough hair. Then I saw Derry. He was leaning in the doorway, wearing his olive jeans and black t-shirt. He was still tall, broad-shouldered Derry, but his fists were jammed in his pockets and his eyes were pleading. I simply looked at him. He swallowed and said in a husky voice, Pony Boy. I let go of Soda and stood there for a minute. Derry didn't like me. He had driven me away that night. He had hit me. Derry hollered at me all the time. He didn't give a hang about me. Suddenly I realized, horrified, that Derry was crying. He didn't make a sound, but tears were running down his cheeks. I hadn't seen him cry in years, not even when Mom and Dad had been killed. I remembered the funeral. I had sobbed in spite of myself. Soda had broken down and bawled like a baby. But Derry had only stood there, his fists in his pockets, and that look on his face, that same helpless, pleading look he was wearing now. And that second was Soda and Dally and Two-Bit had been trying to tell me came through. Derry did care about me, maybe as much as he cared about Soda. And because he cared, he was trying hard to make something of me. When he yelled, Pony, where have you been all this time? He meant, Pony, you scared me to death. Please be careful because I couldn't stand it if anything happened to you. Derry looked down and turned away silently. Suddenly, I broke out of my daze. Derry, I screamed, and the next thing I knew, I had him around the waist and was squeezing the daylights out of him. Derry, I said, I'm sorry. He was stroking my hair and I could hear the sobs racking him as he fought to keep the tears back. Oh, Pony, I thought we lost you like we did Mom and Dad. That was his silent fear then, of losing another person he loved. I remember how close he and Dad had been, and I wonder how I could have ever thought him hard and unfeeling. I listened to his heart pounding through his t-shirt. I knew everything was going to be okay now. I had taken a long way around, but I was finally home to stay. All right, Porter, that is the end of chapter 6, and I will try to get back tomorrow, chapter 7 for you. We'll find out what's going to happen with a lot of things pretty soon with Johnny, with the police, these rumbles. All this stuff is going to start to, we're hitting a high point in the story now, and we'll start to figure out and see what's happening over the next few chapters as the story hits the climax and starts to hit the resolution and then the ending. Okay? I love you, baby. I miss you. I hope that you're doing good. I hope that you are enjoying the summer. Hope that you're enjoying life, experiencing life through your relationships and your friends and your family. And I hope you're having a good time, baby. I love you. I miss you. And I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.